All right, well, good day, everyone. We want to welcome you to one of PrimePay's monthly Broken Hour webinars as part of our series here, the first Wednesday of every month. Thank you so much for joining us. This week, July 1st, always a tough week because we got, everybody's trying to get out of town, right? Enjoy some of the holiday festivities here this week. So we are thrilled that you have taken time here today with your busy schedules to sit with us on this very important topic. My name is Steve Jackson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Strategic Development and Channel Sales here at PrimePay, and I want to welcome you to our webinar entitled today, Private Exchanges, Old News or Your Key Differentiator. All right, and so we're going to dive right into the content here in just a little bit. As you can see here, we've got some patriotic themes going on. We want to wish everyone here on our webcast a very happy 4th of July. Enjoy it with your family and friends. We've got the U.S. Women's World Soccer Cup going on. They've made it to the finals, so we've got a lot to be patriotic about, right? So go USA. All right. So we want to welcome you. Let's go ahead. Let me just touch on some of the logistics here today of our webinar. We are recording this webcast here today. It will be posted on our Broker Concierge YouTube channel. Usually just give that a day or two, but then that will be posted, and we'll also include that as part of our follow-up email to you. For our Broker Concierge partners, we will be providing a copy of the slide deck, and then there's usually some other things that we try to throw in there, just in regard to the topic for today and so forth. Also, we would request your questions as well. So what I'd ask you to do is go into the GoToMeeting menu bar, go to the questions box there, go ahead and type in your question. If I have an opportunity to answer that here for you today, I will. Otherwise, if it's more direct, we will just contact you directly afterwards to try to help answer that question. Or what we have done in the past, we have put those questions in an FAQ and then supplied that after the webinar for each of you as well. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get started? We have a pretty strong agenda here today. And you're going to see an acronym as I list there in the blue, lowercase p, but HIX, and that's Private Health Insurance Exchange. I just asked that I didn't want to do too much typing this go-around for this webinar, so I wanted to acronym it here a little bit. So everywhere where you see PHIX, that's a Private Health Insurance Exchange, okay? So I'll keep highlighting that here throughout the webinar today. So our agenda is pretty tight, pretty strong here. We're going to quickly go over a quick compliance update. Last week, certainly the Supreme Court kept us busy, right, with several actions ranging from the Burwell subsidy, an exchange subsidy case, and then the same-sex marriage. And I want to actually just talk briefly about the same-sex marriage result in that decision and how it might apply here to Section 125 plans and 105 plans. Then we are going to dive right into our content. So we're going to cover the basics of a private health insurance exchange. We're going to review the various deliverable of models, like where do employers get these platforms, this technology from here today. So let's review kind of those various models that are out there today. Then let's get into a little bit of the debate. Those that have really said, you know what, I'm not necessarily for a health insurance exchange, and here's why. Let's kind of touch on some of those things because I think that you'll find that extremely helpful as you're talking with your clients. And then also then the debate for, what are the advantages, the proponents, and the kind of the elements behind why it is popular. And then I do want to dive into the key elements. As you and your agency, as you think or employers think about adopting a private health insurance exchange, you need to understand kind of the key elements that are going to make that thing tick. And so we're going to cover that in some detail here today. And then lastly, what I hope, and kind of throughout here, we're going to talk about how you can create a more differentiated approach for your agency and for your clients by adopting a private health insurance exchange for your agency. Okay, so we have a lot to talk about, so let's dig into this quick compliance update here right out of the gate. So for many of you, you guys, if you were anywhere here, at least along with Twitter to any news source that you get and gather your information, you heard about the Supreme Court decision on same-sex marriage. I mean, a historic case, and as the bullet reads there, same-sex marriage is now a nationwide right. Okay, so as we think about Section 125 plans and 105 plans, we have rules for who the employee and their spouse, right, and dependents. And so the spouse thing is kind of shored up with the same-sex marriage decision. Okay, so now we have that settled. But one thing that was, I would say, was still kind of causing some confusion out there from our clients and brokers was just on the domestic partner relationships and what impact did that decision have in regard to domestic partner relationships. And so under Section 125 and under Section 105 plans, as it states here currently, the domestic partner kind of the requirements were unaffected by this court's decision on same-sex marriage. So it did not remove some of the underlying requirements that are needed in regards to providing a Section 125 or 105 plan where a domestic partner would fall under as either a benefited individual, under that plan. So currently, there are no amendments needed for these documents. So, Section 125 and 105, there's been several changes or additions under the Affordable Care Act, but with this current decision, there is not an amendment change needed for these documents. So let me just touch on, though, a couple things. Just touch on a couple things here, though, that I think you would find, valuable, here, at least in regard to that. So the cost of the benefit provided, when you look at the standard requirement under Section 125 and 105, it would state that the domestic partner benefit, so the cost of the benefit provided, resulted in imputed income. So for instance, if an employee of the company, they're having employee plus one coverage, and that domestic partner is covered under that coverage, you could somewhat reasonably assume that half of that premium could be pre-tax and half of that premium would be post-tax, okay? So the imputed income. Now, I think for a lot of us, as we have these conversations with clients, I think many conversations have led, well, I don't even think my employer's doing that. They're not imputing income. Okay. So, but the requirement is they need to. So that part of the premium that would constitute the cost of that benefit for the domestic partner, that would need to be listed as or counted as imputed income. Okay. So then we just get, and I just want to clarify this, and in a webinar such as this, I can't go into extreme detail, but to provide some additional content in regard to Code Section 105B. So under Section 125 and 105, it's going to refer to the definition of a dependent under 105B, okay? And in that definition, in order for a domestic partner to be considered a dependent, okay, they must be and qualify where all of it could be pre-tax, okay, and not imputed income, is that the domestic partner would need to be a qualifying child or a qualifying relative, okay? So it is going to be difficult for a domestic partner to be considered or qualify as a qualifying child, okay? So you do need to look at, okay, well, would they qualify as a qualifying relative? And there's four things that have to be done, okay, in order for that to happen, in order for them to qualify. And it's not to say they can't ever, but, it kind of makes it reasonable to think that it's harder for them to become a qualifying relative. So one is easy. So number one is they have to have a specified relationship to the employee, which means that they have the same principal place of residence as the employee. They're a member of the employee's household, okay? So that's kind of number one. That's a little easier to come to being, for a domestic partner. Secondly, they need to receive over half of his or her support from the employee. And this one's a little harder to come by, right? I mean, sometimes it can happen. Many times it would not. The third item is you cannot be anyone's qualifying child. So that domestic partner could not be kind of a tax-dependent or qualifying child of someone else. Okay, kind of sounds reasonable there. And then lastly, they cannot be an ineligible individual under Code Section 152B, which is kind of the basic saying, you know, is not a married dependent filing a joint return, is someone who is not a citizen or a national of the U.S., and so forth. So someone who's not a citizen of the U.S. So it is possible for that domestic partner to receive a pre-tax benefit of premium, but they would have to qualify under that qualifying relative definition. And so I just asked, you could certainly, Google search that to code 105B, and it will describe for you kind of what falls under that qualifying relative structure. And, this is, as we always try to do here at PrimePay, is give you little tidbits, practical application here for your clients. Your clients will be asking about this, at least at some point. Better yet, why not be proactive and get out to your clients here right away with some of this important information? Because depending on the state, depending on the employer, many of your employers will have some clause or permit, enrollment for domestic partner relationships. Okay, so that's just a quick compliance update in regard to that, and one that might help diffuse at least some of the questions that you will see out there. All right. So before we get into some of the basics of the private health insurance exchange, I wanted to run by you a poll question. So if you would, go ahead and get to your computers. And I have actually launched a poll question. And I just kind of one out of the gate, I have two questions to ask. And the first question is this: do you see your agency adopting a private health insurance exchange for your clients within the next 2 years? So yes, no, unsure. Pretty basic, right? Just give you a few seconds here to kind of go through that. Do you see your agency adopting a private health insurance exchange for your clients within the next 2 years? Good job, good job. All right, I'll just give you another 10 seconds here, and then I will close the poll. Okay, I'm going to close the poll. All right, let me share that with you. And so the results of the poll here show that it's very tight here between the yeses and the unsures. And to be quite honest, that's what I expected a little bit, but needed you to validate that. So many of you say, yeah, I mean, sure, we are going to adopt this here in the next 2 years. But I know many of you here, several said no, and many here are certainly unsure. Let me do one more poll question before we get started, so stay there at your computers. And everyone can answer, even that said no, based on that previous question. But go ahead and type in your answer here. What employer size do you think is more likely to implement a private health insurance exchange? What do you think? Under 100 lives? Between 100 and 500, or really kind of the much larger, it's 500 plus. That's what it's set up for. What do you think? Give you a few seconds here. You guys are doing great. All right, just give you a few more seconds. Good work. All right, I am going to close the polls, and let me share that with you. All right, interesting, but not. So here you guys are saying that 38% say that the under 100 market is really poised to adopt the private health insurance exchange, and 43% there in that 100 to 500, with very few in that 500 plus. Now that could be too that many of your agencies, your clients, you're not necessarily looking in that more of the jumbo kind of a market or that larger size. But what it does tell me, and I think what it tells you guys, right, is that there is a strong market potential here. About 81% of you believe that for groups under 500 that a private health insurance exchange can be a viable option. So very interesting. Thank you for doing that. All right, let me hide that here. All right. All right. So getting into the basics, I want to kind of cover just a few things here with you. Again, we got some great content here for you today, and remember, you'll have the slides, you'll have the recording, so you can kind of come back to this and review it here at your leisure. But I want to touch on kind of two different benefit strategies to lay the foundation here for a private health insurance exchange. You know, I'm not here today to tell you what an exchange is, okay, to some degree. As I go through this, you're going to truly, you know, get certainly a better handle on what it's all about. But, you know, we're not necessarily going over the definition here with you, but we're going to paint a picture. The traditional benefit strategy, think about this. The employer has been central in really the major decisions of benefits today, right? I mean, as you look at this picture, you look at the cogs in the wheel, the employer is the one that's turning the dial, right? I mean, as they should. I mean, to a degree. They're the employer. They're providing employer-sponsored coverage. They're providing benefits and offerings to their employees. So I think to a degree they need to be, you know, in a major part with the decision process of that. However, you know, the employer has really been the one turning every bit of those wheels. And as you think about the traditional benefit strategy, the employer is making the decision on the carrier, the products, the plans that will be offered. And so you see there the employer and the cog of the benefits, and then ultimately that's going to turn the employee, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's choice involved. There is maybe a great benefit offering that's being provided to the employee, but the employee, instead of choice or flexibility, they're simply selecting what they want. And I'll give an example, and this by no means, in my example, because I think I've given it before, is a negative actually to PrimePay, but PrimePay offers a great insurance program here, a fantastic offering, you know, benefit offering. But we have one insurance plan to choose from, okay? And it's a great plan. I love the plan. But we have a varying demographics here, right, across the U.S., all different sorts of age groups, families, singles, and so forth. And are we true to think that, you know, PrimePay's decision of this benefit, that it truly meets everyone's needs? You know, that everyone says, man, that's a fantastic offering, right? So really, the employee here at PrimePay or another company that would be in that similar situation, they're not choosing benefits per se. They're just selecting whether they're enrolling in that benefit or not, right? Or need to waive it or what have you. And so today, most employers today, most employees are selecting from a decision of benefits that are offered by the employer with very little choice. And one other thing I want to point out. In this picture, you're seeing the employer, you're seeing benefits, you're seeing employee, but I'm not actually showing here right now kind of the mechanism behind it on how those benefits are delivered ultimately to the employee. And you guys are best to answer that question, but what I continue to see out there is that there is a greater adoption of employers wanting to adopt some benefit administration technology, but a wide range, a broad swath of employers today are not utilizing technology to deliver those benefits. We still have a lot of manual processes. We still have, an employer will have, you know, maybe 20 different spreadsheets managing their benefits, from open enrollment to new hires to ACA compliance items to ancillary benefits, you know, and the list goes on and on. And so that traditional benefit strategy, although it does work, it's not efficient, and it's not ultimately providing a lot more consumer engagement that, you know, we all, I think, are desiring, you know, as a whole. So now think about the private health insurance benefit, the exchange benefit strategy. And now you'll see kind of the cog in the wheel. I've made it, you know, certainly bigger. I've replaced the employer with the employee. And whereas the employer is clearly involved in helping with the benefit strategy, right, from employer funding, from the technology that's going to support it, to the carrier, to the specific products, the private health insurance exchange is really geared toward driving a greater flexibility and choice and consumer engagement for the employee. So it's almost as if we're giving, maybe not entirely, maybe this picture is a little off, but it's really meant to show, listen, the employee is actually having more, they have more opportunity in this type of a strategy than before. And now the benefits are run through a private health insurance exchange platform that's really going to drive a lot of the efficiencies and so forth. So you see kind of the difference, and I know you know that the traditional benefit strategy, you live that each and every month, and as you go through renewals. So the health exchange strategy is not much different, but now we're going to kind of dive more into some of the glossary of terms so that we can understand more fully what the private exchange means, to an employer, but also to the agency. So I'm going to attempt to try to tie in the advantages and or disadvantages to both, okay, as I go through the process here today. So I want to go through a glossary of terms, if you will, in regard to a health exchange, okay? Not like you normally see it, okay? We're going to just kind of touch on some elements, certainly, of the exchange. So the first thing that I want to mention, and sometimes there's confusion in regard to each of these that I'm going to list here now, and that's one reason why I want to try to alleviate some of that confusion as to the fundamental offering of a private health exchange. So some of the fundamental offerings, what you see there today is fully insured and self-insured, right? I mean, no duh. There's many employers and even small employers today in that, 20 to 50 size are even moving more towards self-insured today than ever before. But then you've got a vast majority of employers today that are on fully insured plans. Under a private health insurance solution and platform, the employer has the ability to select fully insured plans or self-insured plans, okay? As you see, as I'll show you some statistics here throughout the webinar today, first saw Aon really out there with the private exchange right out of the gate. And, those were self-insured, types of plans. They were jumbo employers, but they were multi-carriers, right? There are, many of these private exchange offerings that we see today is really based in the fully insured market, but it can be both, and so just know that it's both. Also, the fundamental offering also going to include choices between certainly the high deductible health plans, but to your low deductible, to your richer types of plan offerings, okay? So it is the availability of plans then that have broad networks to narrow networks, all that is available to you. Some of the standard groups of families that are offered to employers today, certainly in the fully insured market, will consist of between 6 to 10 different medical plan offerings. And they're going to range from the high deductible, certainly to low, and different, at least kind of expectations on broad to narrow networks there as well. So do know that there's flexibility. So think about your agency and how you deliver products to your employers. You might have more of a stronger self-insured platform, right? That's your niche, that you have. But it might not be. So you have the ability to actually have both of those types of plans on these platforms. Employer funding. I know that you all are very familiar with defined benefit. It's how employers fund a lot of the premiums here today, where an employer today says, hey, look, guys, if you select this plan, your payroll deduction will be $100 a month. If you select this plan, it'll be $200 a month, right? I mean, that's more of a defined benefit way of an employee selecting their benefits. Now, you've also clearly have heard about defined contribution and how, defined contribution has certainly worked with 401ks and retirement plans over all these years, but will it actually be part of the adoption of a private health insurance exchange? And so we clearly, through the hype of health exchanges here over the last couple years, defined contribution, I mean, I couldn't get out of a webinar that did not talk about defined contribution strategies over 2 years ago. I mean, it was pervasive. It was everywhere. And so what I want to just get your mind set on here is that, do you have to have a defined contribution only strategy through a health exchange? No, not at all. So what it does is actually gives an employer the ability to strategize and really define, what do I want my employer funding to be? What's best for me? Is it the defined benefit strategy, or is it more of a defined contribution strategy that is better? The biggest thing, and I'll touch on it here in a couple other slides, but what the health insurance exchange does, that platform does, is that it actually enables the defined contribution strategy. Because before, it just doesn't work if you don't have a technology platform to guide an employee through that kind of process of choosing which health plan is going to be right for them, and just giving someone, as a defined contribution, this bucket of dollars, saying, as an example, as an employer, hey guys, I'm going to give you $8,500. Okay, go. You've got 8 different plans, medical plans that you can choose from. You go pick which is right, for you. Okay, and so it certainly has not, been at the level of adoption as what most folks had stated or had wanted here even over 2 years ago. But defined contribution, that strategy works, and it works best in a technology platform such as the health insurance exchange. Carrier availability. Another big area of concern, right, is carrier availability. Now, think about products that you want to put on your shelves. A carrier will need to commit to your exchange platform, okay, or that employer's exchange platform. And so carrier availability is actually pretty important. It's actually a key piece, right? If you don't have any product, you're not going to be able to use, the exchange. So with that product in mind, you need to think about, a platform, a health exchange that would be able to accommodate single carriers, which is what we see most readily. But we also see multi-carriers, but you see that on the jumbo employers. You see that with the large consulting houses, the Aons of the world, where they can splice carriers side by side. Why? Because they can get those carriers in front of 1 million insureds. Okay, so a multi-carrier approach can work. But you also have carriers that are kind of dictating, which is fine, but they're dictating which products they will place on the exchange. Some carriers will allow for all small groups, so 2+, you're on. We can put those products on your platform. For a large group, though, some carriers, actually several carriers have stipulated we're only going to allow the 100+ plans on your exchange. And so many of the large, even national carriers, maybe the blues carriers have kind of moved in that direction, where from a large group they might say, listen, the products that we'll put in here will be for 100+, only. So as consideration of your platform or what your employers will be looking for, most carriers like the single carrier approach, meaning a medical carrier only, all right? So they might have a Blue Cross Blue Shield carrier on there. They might have other ancillary carriers, on there, different carriers, that's fine. But as far as medical carriers, they will only have one singular carrier listed. And that's going to be the general, I would say, decision that is made by most carriers today, unless you're sitting in the position of an Aon or one of the major, big consulting firm houses in which you could look at a multi-carrier approach. Consumer choice, another huge glossary term item for health exchanges is consumer choice. Now, I don't know what side of the aisle you lean on, whether you want to allow employees to just have more involvement in the benefit decision, but a health exchange says, we're giving you consumer choice. So even though you can tailor to pre-selected products, which you will do, the employer will go through the same process with you in regard to selecting the carrier, but now they're just given a family of products and plans, like I said, 6 to 10 probably different medical plan options that will be there. So they're pre-selected. But they can be customized. So they can be easily customized based on maybe geographic location. Let's say you have employees in California. Well, they only need to see what is available in California or the premiums that would be in California. but you also, you've got another employee in Ohio, and we only want that person in Ohio to see, their Ohio offerings. So consumer choice and making it personalized or customized to the employer is really key with a health exchange. But I also want to say this is much more than medical insurance. So what what the choice mechanism provides in a health exchange is that it opens up the door with more transparency, the ability for that employee to see other types of coverage, so disability to life insurance to critical illness policies, whatever that may be, whatever you might be into and could provide to your employers. This offering is much more than just medical. So just get your mind thinking a little bit about some revenue generating opportunities there, right? One other part of customer choice or consumer choice as part of the exchange is the opportunity for ancillary only exchanges. Now you might ask, well, where do you see this? I mean, we'll see this right now more predominantly in a company that has a lot of variable hour employees, those employees who are not eligible for the group medical product. Okay, they can't enroll in that. However, they could enroll in dental. They could enroll in vision. They could enroll in some of these other voluntary or ancillary types of coverage. Think about the opportunity there that your employer could have, where if they have this large full-time employee base, okay, hey, you're going to get these pre-selected, customized offerings for the full-time employee base. But now we're going to open up the door for ancillary coverages for your variable, right? So there's opportunities there for the employer to actually increase their benefit offerings right through this exchange, but also an opportunity for you to increase your revenue generation opportunities. Consumer report, another big piece as part of this kind of consumerism of healthcare, a part of health exchanges, is the support mechanism behind it. You all will have told me in the past, and we know that if you give an employee 8 different options of health insurance plans to choose from, holy cow, right? I mean, if you were to just lay it out on a desk, I mean, they wouldn't know. Now, for you or I, probably within 5 minutes, we would get through it. We would understand it and can get through it. But if we didn't have a technology platform to be able to lead us through that process, for an individual to determine what health insurance option is best for them, that is a monumental task. And so a health exchange must have and will have an automated decision support system that will guide employees through that process. That's why that defined contribution model does work so well within an exchange environment, because it's just saying, okay, hey, you got this bucket of money, all right, start shopping, and start shopping for your health care, and then they're going to guide them through the way. Another piece to that, too, in shopping, employees, individuals, we like shopping, right? And so this is a very comfortable environment for employees to go through. It's also going to include calculators, tools, educational resources as well to really help guide that employee through that process. Another part that you want to consider as you think about an exchange for your agency, but also for employers, is you can actually divide your exchange to be focused fully on full-time employees, okay, so just your 30 or more on average hours per week, or you're tailoring it toward a variable hour employee base, so the part-time employees, so kind of much like I had mentioned about that ancillary only type of a exchange. And lastly, retiree, and you see a lot of retiree types of groups that would be with large employers, unions, whatever it may be, but you can carve out, what we've seen in some of the larger employer space is that they've, carved out the full-time employee base and then carved out the platform for retirees as well. So it opens up the door to be able to class employees and drive benefits to a specific class. Think of that, how you could reach everybody in that employer organization, right? That's really key. Compliance. I did save this for last, although it all should be first. One of the most major opportunities that a health exchange provides for an employer is the compliance. Employers want to mitigate their risk, and what you all are learning today in regard to just the reporting requirements of 1094, 1095. There's a lot of coverage information that's going to need to be included. I mean, there's a lot of payroll information there as well, but you need to get this information somewhere and in a platform that can hold this data so that when ready, can then distribute that data. And so compliance is the ability to comply with ACA, with HR-related functions, COBRA, and so forth, is done very nicely because it's very efficient through this process, and we'll explain more. But it will handle FTE, full-time equivalent calculations. It'll help manage the wellness part of programs and incentives that might be there, reporting. And guess what, too? I mean, another key component to the health exchange is that it helps with the Cadillac tax. That's coming out in 2018. There is no way that an employer will want to pay 40% excise tax on their benefit offerings. So guess what? They're going to need a vehicle today to best manage that strategy. Whether it's a defined benefit strategy, a defined contribution strategy, who knows, right? But a platform such as this will help them begin to think how they will need to comply under this Cadillac tax that will be forthcoming. So I'm going to show some metrics and statistics here throughout the day, throughout this webinar, and so I'll just kind of keep showing you some things here throughout, and just to kind of show you some of the certainly the positivity and the growth expectations here of private exchanges. So essentially, you may have known for the last probably 3 years now, they have come out with a private health exchange kind of annual survey. And, this has changed a little, but not too much, actually, over these last 3 years. But look at that chart. So in 2014, there were 3 million employees that were on private exchanges in 2014. That doubled as of the beginning, and this just came out here this spring, this report. So there were 6 million here in the 2015 report. They expect each year that enrollment in private health exchange will double in each year over the next 3 years to an enrollment estimate of 40 million here in 3 years. So think about that. So for many of you that were saying, no, or I'm unsure, about whether a private health exchange is something that I will or my employers will adopt, boy, it is certainly something to think about. I think for many of us, we could probably discount some of this growth. Is it really going to be a doubling each year? Maybe not. But if we're looking at 30, 50% growth of enrollment, this is something that you might want to probably take a part of, at least within your agency, and talking about it more with your clients. So let's talk a little bit about the distribution of private exchanges here today. And I kind of titled it here, what do your employers see actually in this marketplace today? I mean, to some degree, they're getting hit with opportunities from either directly from these private health insurance exchange platforms, from other brokers. Certainly, you see Zenefits and you see Namely and certainly others that are out there that are talking a lot less about a BOR, but really talking about the technology behind it. And although they're not offering an exchange, that's not my point. The point is that technology is becoming a much more widely talked about solution from an employer basis. So employers are seeing this more than you think. Or may think, okay? Some of you might be completely on top of that. That is for sure. So I've broken this into 4 basic models, and the first one here, and I'll show, I'll go through a couple examples here as we go through, but the fastest growing segment of kind of distributors of private health insurance exchange platforms is the broker agent, okay, our agencies. The barriers to entry are being reduced, there's certainly the decision to build their own, to buy, or to partner. You still have those same decisions, but the greatest growth strategy where private health insurance exchange platforms are being distributed to employers today is through the broker agent, okay, fastest growing. The next piece, and it's not necessarily in order of growth, but as far as these four basic models, the insurer is the next one, right? All of you know that probably most insurers today offer an enrollment. I will say this: it's not really an exchange, I think, to some degree, but it's a more dynamic enrollment experience, right? They have a portal now that many employees and employers can utilize to do that. So in the past, they were focused more on maybe the individual market with this strategy. But over the last couple years, most insurers today are really focused heavily on the group market, and a lot have been on the small group market, not entirely, but a lot of the focus has been in that small group market, okay, on that exchange. And these, again, they call them exchanges a lot of times because that's kind of a term to use today. But I would say, generally speaking, it's a more dynamic benefit enrollment system that's integrated directly with the carrier. So that integration with the carrier is a key component and one that cannot be denied. That's a fantastic positive that they can provide with that. However, it's not providing a lot of the other things that an employer ultimately needs, from an ACA compliance basis, the integration to other vendors and other ancillary types of coverage that they would have, okay? These insurers are really providing an exchange portal specifically for their products only. The third item, and one that we've seen here right from the get-go, has been the consulting firms, the large consulting houses. And that's going to be your Towers Watsons, Aon Hewitts and Arthur Gallagher's, Mercer's, Buck Consultants, maybe Willis's of the world, where they're really the larger consulting firms. They have primarily been focused on jumbo employers. But what we have seen is a tremendous adoption of employers. When you look at that 3 million and 6 million people enrolled in private health exchanges, a good percentage of those enrollees are specifically from these consulting firms. They're driving a lot of the adoption certainly here today. The last item and we're seeing this more on a direct basis, however, there is an enormous tie-in where these technology vendors now connect themselves with brokers and agents, thus the explosive growth in this area. But technology vendors would be, names like, bswift and Benefit Focus, Array Health, Hcentive, Business Solver, Plan Source. Those are technology vendors that really provide every element. They are more of the comprehensive, agnostic to carrier type of solution that employers see a lot of potential because it's a very comprehensive platform. And it's got every element from cloud-based systems to, just software-based systems to, where they're providing analytics really for all the data needed for reporting purposes and so forth. There are about, and this is the current number, although you might see numbers higher, but the true private health insurance exchange vendors out there today, there's about 20. I didn't leave a zero at the end of that. It's 20, not 200. So there's 20. But through consolidation, you certainly have seen, Aetna purchase bswift last year. We saw Towers Watson purchase Liaison. So you're seeing some consolidation in this industry. But what you're seeing is you're seeing a few new players. But guess what? These new players and even existing players, they're getting better. They know what they're doing. They've now been at it here over the last 2 to 3 years, and these vendors are phenomenal. What many of these technology vendors do is that they do partner. They're willing, or actually have a model where they only work through the broker community, the agency community. Okay, and so you're seeing a tremendous amount of growth with these two basic models here on the left side, with broker agent and the technology vendors. Just a quick chart. Again, just want to show some statistics here. This is on larger employers, but a very, just a nice statistical report from Kaiser Family Foundation that I wanted to show. Again, this is looking at larger employers, 200 or more employees. So I realize that many of you might be in the smaller employer space, and that's fine. But just to give some perspective, as you can see there in that 200 to 999 space, about 12% of them are considering offering benefits through a private exchange. And then the chart on the right, not the far right, but the middle, are firms considering a defined contribution approach. So 20%, and that's pretty typical. I have seen another report from Allegis Technologies a little over a year ago, and they have stated that over 90% of employers that they had surveyed, and there was over 500 employers with just 50 to 500, so much smaller type of employer, 90% of those employers were interested in exploring defined contribution plans. So very interesting, right? So the demand is building, at least in regard to understanding what a defined contribution approach might mean. Let's debate a little bit some of the pros and cons. You guys have heard both sides of the aisle, and I want to try to go through these just a little quickly here just based on time. But let's kind of debate this here just a little bit. And let's first look maybe why employers would be less likely to adopt a private health insurance exchange model. And the first bullets here, I would say I see quite a bit. Maybe they're just saying, you know what, Steve, I just don't believe all the hype. Yeah, you got all this stuff, technology, whatever, but I'm not really believing all this hype that it's really, is it too good to be true type of a thing. And also to go along right with that, many employers said, you know what, just it's too new. I want them to kind of figure themselves out. Maybe there's not enough metrics or data yet that, really help me in my decision, although I would say based on Aon, Bloom, actually, Mercer, many of the other players out there, PricewaterhouseCoopers has some fantastic charts, and they would probably prove otherwise, that there are some consistent metrics out there today that would prove that private exchanges do indeed, help an employer. And the third item there, uncertainties about employee reaction. I think a lot of employers in many discussions that you may have had, kind of fell around, well, I don't think my employees are ready, for a technology like this. And so they were less likely to adopt that. You might have employers also that just say, you know what, I want freedom. I enjoy designing my health plan. So you might have employers that just want to keep picking all the different plans and really dive in headlong into that decision process. They also might think that health benefits are really considered critical. They might be part of an organization based on the health plan and kind of the just the place that an employer is in right now, that, you know what, I don't know if I'm in a position really to tweak this, where it is today. It's kind of critical to my employee base at the time. Also, they might say maybe this is a smaller employer potentially that could say, well, I don't know, a technology platform such as a health exchange, I don't know if I really need it because of compliance. I like my spreadsheets. Or maybe, they don't have they don't have, I guess, just maybe the apparent need for compliance. They could also be self-funded. Many employers are self-funded, and they might just say, you know what, I've kind of managed costs. I've managed it through my self-funding of these plans. And so, cost really isn't an issue. And so, you're telling me maybe I'd save some money by offering more choice and flexibility for my employees, but I feel like I'm controlling cost here today. Defined contribution, you could clearly have employers that say, that's just not for me. It's not something that I want to accept. And maybe, again, cost is currently contained. And I just wanted to show you just one example. This is from PricewaterhouseCoopers in their Touchstone survey here that was just out here recently. They basically said about 67% of employers already offer a high deductible health plan, okay? And out of that as well, 47% offer plans that qualify for HSAs. So thinking about cost, maybe some employers have done what they can to try to curtail, that cost. And so, 67% already offer an HDHP. That could be a reason why they might be less likely to choose a private health insurance exchange. And that last bullet there, 32%, kind of interesting, right? This is a pretty broad survey. This isn't just large employers. 32% of employers are considering a move to a private health exchange in 3 years. So that's a large number of employers. And again, thinking about how your agency will ultimately be tied into that opportunity. Now, on the flip side, you have employers certainly that are or may be more likely to adopt a private health exchange, and why? Think of this too, and just before I get to the first bullet, many employers today, they are hiring. I mean, we are seeing hiring out there from employers. But when you think about the HR department, usually the HR department is pretty contained to a select few, right? And generally what an employer does is they do more with less people. And so if they're going to move in that fashion from an HR department angle, then that means they're going to have to create efficiencies, automate, scalability. And how are they going to do that? They're going to have to do that through technology and through possibly platforms such as the health exchange. So this could be decisions based on that company and how they develop their strategies. They could, the decision to adopt a platform such as this aligns with their initiatives, of the company. You could have, and I know, the desire to shift away from benefit decisions is probably very welcome with most employers. To be quite honest, I don't think that every employer is just dying to meet you at the renewal meeting at the conference room table going, I can't wait to spreadsheet. Let's go. Let's talk about benefit decisions. So a desire to shift away more from those benefit decisions could be certainly desirable. Desire for enhanced benefit experience. I think many employers are looking for better consumer engagement from their employees. Also, employer sizes. I mean, if we were to just look at, kind of what historically has been done, it would generally, I would generally say, mid-size employers to large-size employers would be more readily willing to adopt such a platform. Now, I will say that there is a tremendous amount of growth in that small group, and when I say small group, I guess I'm now saying maybe the 2 to 100, right? Somewhere in that 2 to 50, 2 to 75 in that range. But they are adopting these platforms, but I would say the greater adoption is kind of in that size to large size market. These employers also might focus on employee flexibility, where the employee demographics vary. I gave you the example here at PrimePay. We have employees that are, just out of high school and college to those that are in their later years, right? And so one plan just isn't going to be perfect for everyone. So if they have a varying demographic of employees, an exchange platform is going to enable greater flexibility and choice. And these employers would more likely choose such a platform. Maybe it's also the acceptance of defined contribution strategies and really wanting to have a vehicle to be able to deliver that funding strategy on, and they would do that through that platform. ACA compliance, really critical. I mean, if in mitigating any compliance, an exchange platform is going to help that greatly. If you just even think about benefit compliance or think about benefit eligibility, adding someone on time, terming them on time, doing age 26 dependent audits. I mean, there's tens of thousands of dollars that an employer can save by utilizing a platform that can capture those moments instantaneously. Then you have integration needs. When you look at many exchanges I mentioned on the insurer front, they just have a platform that's available for their products only. Well, that's nice for an employer, but that doesn't even solve 2/3 of the employer's needs. They still need those platforms to be integrated with payroll, because I need to measure my variable hour employees. I need to make sure that the hours that are worked for those VHEs are thrown into, either payroll or it's thrown into this platform so that it can be calculated. There's just this greater need due to ACA that integration is vital. And so you need to have that greater agnostic platform that can really sit with any type of carrier or product. And lastly here, as I list here, is just the Cadillac tax. Employers, as they're looking at their cost of benefits today, might be nearing, or they can see where they are going to hit that 10,200, right, for single and so forth. They have the potential to max beyond those existing minimums, which means that they're going to be paying an excise tax. They're going to want to be able to start tracking that better today, and they do that through an exchange portal. One of the charts then that I'll show you here is just an example of, just some selection, right? What employees did in the second year. And what this chart shows, Aon and Bloom, it's showing the second year of enrollment of the same employees and what they chose. And you see there in the blue, and I'll look at Aon, it's showing that roughly here, 81% of the employees in the second year maintained their existing coverage. About 7% in the red there actually chose to increase their coverage, so get a richer coverage. And then 12% actually increased. They chose a less coverage type of an option. And the same with Bloom. About 70% maintained their coverage. 12% in the red chose to increase the amount of their coverage, and 18% decreased the amount of their coverage. My point is this, is that at the end of the day, employees do want choice. And they want the ability to change based on their family's conditions. And as employers are dictating today, more in the traditional sense of what benefit is being offered, having an exchange with various options is actually a very good thing, and I think ultimately what employees are looking for. So what are the key elements? Key elements. Now, I created HIX as an element, so if there's any science geeks out there, I made that up. Okay, that's not real. but the key elements of an exchange are these, and we'll be able to go through these pretty quickly to get to kind of the final thoughts here for you as an agency. What I want you to think about as you're coming to grips as an agency and determining which private exchange platform might be right for you, ultimately what you need to do is consider, what does the buyer want? And certainly at the end of the day, need. But what does the buyer want? Because when you look at a lot of the exchange platforms out there, you're going to find some that are very simple, okay? Very simple, but just really the functionality is limited certainly to those that are much more boisterous. They've got a lot more going on for both the employer, yourself, and the integration needs. So I've broken up the key elements into two key areas of focus. So as you're considering your private exchange and what an exchange should look like, you need to consider these, but based on these two elements, employee engagement and employer engagement. So the first here is one, make it easy. These platforms, some can be very convoluted. They're very difficult actually to go through. So an exchange platform that is chosen, at the end of the day, it's got to be easy. Here's the 3 easy steps to get you rolled. That type of a thing. It needs to have a dynamic shopping experience for the employee, but also, though, the decision support tool that could go along with it, if that employee wants it, to be able to help them choose which health insurance plan is going to be right for them. Self-service functionality is critical. I cannot say it, with more emphasis. Having a platform that enables self-service is huge. An employer is going to love that. The employee having to be able to go in as a new hire and enter their information right into the platform so that the employer doesn't need to have a spreadsheet on that. Having that all together is critical. Educational tools and resources are huge. Personalized plan recommendation engines. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have, we want to remove some of the thought in this. We want to make it easy, right? So as an employee is going through the enrollment process, let's say they selected a health plan that qualifies for a HSA. Well, we would want them to be prompted to and recommend them contributing to a health savings account, right? So recommendation engines really help achieve a lot more than just kind of noise as they're going through the enrollment process. It helps and assists them through that process. But also things like mobile app access and so forth, are going to be needed. On the employer engagement, you're going to want a platform that is indeed configurable to the needs of that employer. You're going to need, as an agency, to be able to deliver a platform that can really reach 80% of your employers, and out of those 80% of your client base, you need to make sure that you can configure it appropriately. Okay, so it does need to be scalable. All right, scalable not only for the small group but also for the large group as well. You need to have a platform that will manage automatic onboarding for new hires, open enrollment management, certainly the employer funding strategies like defined contribution. But keep in mind, you don't have to do defined contribution. You don't have to offer an exchange that only has defined contribution, right? I mean, Liaison kind of made that successful, but they went with a specific direction. 100% of our plans are going to be defined contribution. That is not the case today. Your exchange can actually have the option, but it's not requiring it. You need also a platform that will cover eligibility management, personalized reporting, maybe some HR functionality could be there for the employer. And certainly these others, as I've talked about before, I mean, there is a huge need and desire for ACA compliance. The 1094-95 reporting is huge. It's due here in January, and you can best manage that through a health exchange platform. So let's look at as we just close, as we kind of wrap things up here, just thinking about the differentiated approach for you, defining your competitive edge. And I don't know which hat, which platform there. Is it the black one? Is it the tan one? I don't know. But let me just list a few ideas that I think can kind of get your mind thinking a little bit here. So what I want you to think about as you're thinking about your differentiated approach to your exchange platform, I want you to think about these 5 different things, because it's really, what does the employer need? What makes them happy? What makes them jump for joy, right? What makes them happy? And these are top things that we continue to hear time and time and time again. The number one, controlling healthcare costs. You're already vastly involved with that. The exchange makes it a little more transparent, not only for the employer to view it, because they kind of know their budget, their healthcare expenditures, and so forth, but it really drives transparency for you so that you're actually helping to drive that in a more kind of, I'll call it, partner or collaborative process, okay? So an exchange will help with that discussion of controlling healthcare. And ultimately, our hope, would be that you can actually control healthcare costs through this platform. This massively addresses the needs of the diverse workforce that an employer is going to have. And so having a platform that would be able to meet those specific needs, if you need that, maybe you have a specific niche, maybe all you deal with is school districts or unions of a particular type, blue collar, white collar, whatever it may be. So you're going to need to understand what that employer needs to address those specific requirements. Reducing manual processes. This is what we see time and time again, and I've mentioned their name a couple times, but Zenefits, because they're all over the news, they have grown tremendously in a year and a half. They've done it because of technology, because you're reducing the manual processes of each and every one of those new hires and current employees that you have. 4th item here, mitigate compliance. Another big reason for that technology feature is to reduce the what ifs, the uh-ohs, I didn't do that, is to reduce all of that and to gain better efficiencies in regard to ACA compliance. And the last item that I throw in there is payroll integration. As you think about your private exchange platform, you need to consider a payroll partner in order to integrate with. You have to, because most employers have most of their data that's needed for the measurement periods, for FTE calculations, for affordability calculations. All that is done in payroll. The 94, 95 reporting requirements, where do you find a lot of that? In payroll, okay? So the integration of payroll and having that as a partnership is going to be very critical in your decision as well. So what is your strategy? And I've kind of listed a few things here, and I want you to think about the private exchange solution not as a product, okay, but a benefit delivery solution, right? It's not a product, but a compliance delivery solution. It's not a product, but it's a cost management solution. It's a consumer engagement solution. And then lastly, what I show here is it's a revenue generating solution. And so what I want to show here is just an example. I just put it in one sentence here, but I wanted to reflect a recent announcement from an agency in New York. And they're just primarily based in New York. They started their exchange platform January of 2014. They have currently 22,000 employees loaded on that platform today. They have presently about 20 to 30 clients waiting to be put onto that platform. So when you think about a revenue generating solution, your deliverables, it's not a product. We're not out there selling necessarily just this technology product item, but you're delivering a new benefit delivery solution for that employer and for your agency, something that can handle compliance in a much greater light. It's going to help reduce costs or help to manage cost in a better fashion. It's going to engage consumers like never before, and guess what, brokers and benefit consultants out there, it's going to create more revenue. Think about some of those things I said about ancillary-only platforms and reaching out more to the variable hour employee base of your employers. And this is something that can absolutely generate on the voluntary benefit side more opportunities, but also on the acquisition of new business. You will attract larger clients, more clients, by offering such a platform, something that is so indeed connected. So what are your next steps? I know I've gone a little longer than normal here, at least, but we'll try to wrap it up here with this slide. But just some next steps. You know, healthcare consumerism is absolutely taking shape. I recommend you look at some of the PricewaterhouseCoopers, their annual surveys. Tower Watson has some of those. Certainly Aon, Accenture. There's some great pieces of information out there that really prove to you, to your employers, that a private health exchange is something that is a very viable solution. So a couple things. You know, you as an agency just need to determine if a health insurance exchange delivers value. I think I see one of the notes here from one of the attendees today, and it just says, clients may not be interested, in that. Hey, and that might very well be the case. Have you talked to them recently about it? I mean, I would just open up the dialogue again, because when the hype started 2.5 years ago, it was hype. There was not a lot of platform providers that could actually deliver on what was needed. And so you need to look at the value that your agency can deliver through this solution, but ultimately, not only what the value is to you, meaning revenue, new opportunities, and so forth, but it's what value you are giving your clients, the needs of their clients. So then you got to think about build versus partnering, buying and so forth. The cost of entry is very low right now for a broker agency, to do that. However, there are agencies that are out there building their own platforms, and that's completely up to you, but that's a decision that you need to make. You also need to look at just basic functionality, just providing basic benefit admin types of work, but also those platforms that could really maximize the administrative efficiencies, not only for your agency, but also for your clients. And then a big one, and as a bullet, is the insurance markets and carrier availability. Now, your partners, if you partner with someone, they're going to help. They're actually going to help drive that. However, you need to look at your insurance markets, the states that you do business in, and determine the carriers and products that you will place on your platform. The carriers will need to commit to your platform, right? So that all the eligibility and the enrollment, that integration is actually together. So there's some work on your end, but also on your partner's side of the aisle as well, ensuring that you get the products on your shelf that you need in order to deliver your ultimate solution. And let me say this, and just going back to that earlier example of, taking Aon, but also taking that New York agency, growing their platform to over 22,000 participants. That's in 18 months. Adopting this early, it is proven that the early adopters can maximize potential. Maybe they carried the maximum risk, though, right? Because it could have failed. But they carry also that maximum potential of opportunity. And so agencies that are taking hold of these solutions today, I think, are going to be putting themselves well ahead of certainly other agencies who have decided not to really move in this direction. Certainly, is it a fit for everyone? No. And that's why I say, when you look at, many, maybe several employers of yours are not going to be interested, and that's completely fine. But I think that there's a base of employers that as you look at the whole scope of what a private exchange platform can deliver, that they actually would be more engaged and willing to look at maybe adopting that type of a platform. Before we go today, I just want to reflect our current promotion, our PrimePay It Forward promotion that runs through the end of July. If you, just as a reminder, if you send us a proposal for a quote for payroll, for flexible spending, HRA, COBRA, anything, okay, within our company, and you give us an opportunity to sit with your client face-to-face to talk about that solution, that actually will give you a $100 Visa gift card or a service credit of $150 that you could apply for yourself or for your client. So it's a quick $150 that could be given right to your clients, and that's part of our PrimePay It Forward promotion specifically for our brokers. And the appointments just need to occur here through the end of July, all right? So there's no limit, there's no maximum limit. You can get us in front of as many of your clients as possible, and you will get that reward. So we hope you can take advantage of that here in the month of July. So with that, we want to thank you for attending. There was a lot of information there that I provided, and I'm sorry that I've gone a little longer. But I hope that we've provided some good content, some practical content that your agency can begin to think about to determine maybe your next steps in this area. I see several questions in regard to PrimePay and in our exchange opportunity, and I would say please look for information coming soon in regard to our exchange opportunity, and we're excited about that, and but more information will come here in the coming weeks and months. Okay, so with that. That will conclude our webinar here today. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to sit with us. For our broker concierge partners, we thank you for your business here in 2015. Enjoy your summer, and we look forward to coming back with you with another webinar here in August. Have a great day.